Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your average programmer here, back again with another video. And today I've got a solution exercise for you all. I figured that solution exercises are one of the best ways to actually work on your problem solving skills, which is one of the most fundamental skills that you need as a programmer. So I decided to ask my teacher if I could use this because this was given to us as an assignment in school. And I thought it'd be pretty cool if I shared this with you all on YouTube. So we're going to open this up and read it. It says, let me zoom in here a little bit. It says, we're going to ignore this Raptor flowchart. That's just the software that we use in school. We're going to be doing this today in Visual Studio with C#. So it says to create an array with that has 10 test scores. And these are the values of the test scores. So the user may enter their test score and your program will search for that score and output a message if that score is found in the position where the number was found. In addition, calculate the average test score in the array, print the average to the screen, and let the user know if their score is above or below the average test score. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to create an array that has 10 test scores of these values. Without further ado, let's go ahead, create a console app. We're going to name this search array. Go ahead and create this. Sorry about that. Let me exit out of this. Do not save this. So let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio. I hope all of your days or your day is going okay. I don't even know what I clicked. What is going on here? Alright, console app. I'm gonna name this search array. Alright, seems like we already have something with that name. Array search. Gonna create this. So we're gonna be doing this with a while loop, by the way. We're gonna be using a while loop and a for loop. We're gonna use a while loop for searching through the numbers, and we're gonna use a for loop to actually add those numbers to sum. So let's go ahead and get this started. We're going to declare an integer array named test scores. I'm going to set that to a new integer array, which has 10 elements. I'm going to go ahead and initialize this array. So let's go ahead and get the values. 98, 78, 87, 98, 78, 87, 45, 69, 25, 45, 69, 25, 69, 25, 172, 98, 69, 172, 98, 69, perfect. We are all set. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back and read our assignment. We've created the array. The user may enter their test score and your program will search. So if the user enters their test score, we're going to go ahead and console.write something out to the user to prompt them to enter our test score. To enter their test score, sorry. Console.write. Please enter your test score. I did not put the dot in between there. Sorry about that. So we're going to go ahead, declare a variable of integer called score, and we're going to read the line that the user types in. Console.read line. Not only do we want to do that, but we also want to convert that number to an integer, and I'm going to tell you why in a sec. So the reason we want to convert this number into an integer, the reason we wrapped it in this method, is because whenever someone enters a number, when we use console.write, whenever someone enters a number, that number or whatever it is read as a string, no matter what it is. It's taken as a string. But obviously a number, we cannot do anything with a string when it comes to calculations. So we want to read that line, read whatever the user puts in, and we want to take that and convert it to an integer. And that's the reason why we wrapped it and convert to int32. So we take that, whatever the user types in, and we save it as a score variable. So let's head back to our assignment. Your program will search for that score and output a message if that score is found and the position where it was found. So here's where the bulk of our code is going to be. We're going to declare an integer of index. We're going to set that to 0, and we are going to open up our while loop. So while index is less than or equal to test scores dot length -1. The reason I put -1 here is, first, again, we have this index right here, which is the position that we are in the array. So index 0 is going to be the first position, which is 98. Index 1, 78. Index 9 would be 69. So this dot length property is used to count the number of elements in our array. So if we actually, let's do this. I'm going to show you what it does. We're going to console.writeLine test scores dot length. We are going to get back the number 10, because that is the number of elements that we have in our array. I'm going to put 4. See, 10 is the number we get back, because that's the number of elements we have in our array. The reason I'm going to add this -1 is because we start at index 0. We count from 0 to, watch, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 0 to 9. Since we're not starting at 1 and we start at 0, you have to include this -1, or else you're going out of bounds of this array. So if you go to 10, 10 does not exist in this array since we start at 0 and not 1. So it's going to throw an out of bounds exception, which is why we have this -1 here. So when it counts the length of numbers or number of elements that we have in our array and subtract a 1 from it, just because we start at 0. And that's how most programming languages are. The index starts at 0. So uncomment this loop. So while this is true, while the index is less than or equal to test scores dot length, so while we haven't gone through each element in this array, we want to go ahead and do some things. And first thing is, we are going to check if the score we enter, remember the user input, we took it in, converted it to an integer, and stored it as score. So if the score we enter is equal to test scores, sorry about that, test scores index, we want to console.writeLine. Remember, it tells us to let the user know if there's a match and at what index there's a match at. So there's a match at, and we're using a bit of string interpolation here just because it's a lot cooler and a lot easier for us to write. This match at index. String interpolation just allows us to include variables inside of strings dynamically. There's a match at index. So again, index at 0. As long as that's true, as long as this is true, we want to test if score is equal to test scores index. So as we iterate through this, as we iterate through the test scores array, if score, which is the number that we type in, is equal to one of these numbers, then we want to console.write there's a match at index and whatever position it is. That's what this index is for. We want to break out of the loop if that's true. Else we want to increment to the next number, so index plus plus. So if this isn't true, we want to increment to the next number. So first we start at 0. Is test scores index 0 equal to the score that we type in? If it is, then we console that right this. If it's not, then we want to increment index by 1. So now index is 1. Then we go to 78, which is at position index 1. Now if that equals to the score that we type in, then we want to console that right like this. If it's not equal to it, then we increment index by 1 again, and we do the same thing until we get to the last element, and then we stop the loop. So that's what this is for. So now we've searched through the array, found the position and what position it's found. We've got that covered. Now, in addition, calculate the average test score in the array. Print the average to the screen and let the user know if their score is above or below the class average test score. So I'm going to calculate the average test score. And we're going to be doing this in another loop just to show you how many cool things you can do with different loops. We're going to use a for loop this time to calculate the average test score. So we're going to declare an integer of sum. Int sum equals 0. So we're going to declare variable I and set it to 0. Again, I is just the index. Just like up here, we had index. I is the same thing. We just called it a different name because we're using a different loop. So I is equal to 0. As long as I is less than or equal to test scores dot length minus 1, remember, because we start at 0. So rather than going 1 to 10, we go from 0 to 9. If that makes sense. I plus plus. We're going to increment each time. So we are going to run through each number. We're going to take each number and add it to sum. Sum plus equals test scores index. Now you could write it like this, or this is the same way of writing it. I'm going to write it, comment it out. Sum equals sum plus test scores I. I was supposed to put I, not index. Sorry about that. Change this to I, because that's what we're using to find a position of that element. We're using I instead of index. So these two are the same thing, the exact same thing. This is just a neater, simpler, cooler way of writing it. So sum equals 0. I'm going to explain this to you. Sum equals 0. We're going to start at index 0. So we're going to start at 98. It's going to take 98. It's going to add it to sum. Then it's going to increment sum, or increment the index by 1, I plus plus. So now we're at 1. It tests. Is 1 less than test scores.length, which is 9, minus 1, which is 9. Remember, test scores.length minus 1 is 9. So is 1 less than 9? Yes. So goes through this, takes the number at index 1, adds it to, now sum is 98, remember, because we added 98 to 0. So sum is 98, then we take 78 and add it to 98, whatever that is. I'm not going to do the calculations for you. That's why we have this computer do it for us. So we're going to take that, add it to 98. Then it's going to increment I by 1 again. Is 2 less than test scores.length, which is 9? Yes. So it does the same thing. Goes to index 2, adds 87 to 78 plus 98, and does the same thing over and over. You get the point. So now, if we console.writeLine our sum, I'm going to show you that it does exactly what we intended to do. Console.writeLine sum. I'm going to comment these out just so it doesn't bother us. Console.writeLine sum, control F5. The sum of all those numbers is 741. Sorry about that. So when we add all these numbers up in our array, it equals 741. So that's our sum. That's an easier way of writing it rather than doing sum equals test scores 0 plus test scores 1 plus test scores 2 plus test scores 3. This is a much simpler way of doing it. And that's what's so cool about arrays, the flexibility that we have with them. So now we want to, I believe it says to take the average. Yep, calculate the average test score in the array. Sorry guys. I'm going to declare an integer average score equal to sum, which is the total of all the numbers divided by 10, because we have 10 elements in the array, remember. The sum of all these numbers divided by 10, because there are 10 of them. That gives us the average score. So now we are, I believe it tells us to calculate or to print out the average score. Print the average score to the screen and let the user know if their score is above or below the class average test score. So we're gonna console.writeLine string interpolation again, just to be able to insert our variables inside the string. The average test score is average score. So we're going to console.writeLine. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to show you the average. I'm going to comment these out. Those are already commented out. So we're going to control F5. The average test score is 74. So 741 divided by 10 is 74. And I know the actual answer is 74.1, but the reason it didn't give us a decimal is because C# is a statically typed language, is a strongly typed language. So because we want our integer, or we want our variable as an integer, because we declared it as an integer, it's going to give us back an integer. If we were to change this to a float, it would give us back a float, which is pretty much a decimal. That's why it's 74 and not 74.1, which is the actual correct answer. But it's close enough, so that's fine with me and for my teacher, I hope. Okay, so where are we? All right, so we've calculated the average score. So now it says to let the user know if their grade is above or below the average score. So we're going to write an if statement. If score, remember, we're all the way back up here again. Let me uncomment this. If the score that we typed in, that we converted to an integer, is less than average score, which is 74, remember, we did the calculation and I showed you. We are going to console.writeLine. Sorry, you are below the average score. Let the user know that they are not doing very well. Else, we want to console.writeLine. Nice. You are above, you are at or above the average score. The reason I type so slow is because I have to think about how I'm spelling, or else I'll spell the words wrong. I'll look like an idiot. Nice, you're above or at the average test score. So we take the score, we compare it to average score. If the score that we type in as a user is less than the average score, which is 74, we want to console write, sorry, you are below the average score. Else, if it's at or above, we want to console.writeLine, nice, you are at or above the average score. So This is the entirety of our program. We're going to go ahead and run it just to make sure it works. So first we are going to enter a number that is not in here. So we shouldn't get back that there's a match. We're not going to get back that there's a match, but we are still going to get back the average score and whether or not we are at or above the average score. So we're going to type in, let's go with 1, which is not in here. 1. So we didn't get back the average score, or we didn't get back that there's a match. This is just because we have this right here. So let's go ahead and run it again. We're going to type in 1. So we didn't get back that there's a match because 1 is not in our array, but we did get back the average score, which is 74, and it says, sorry, you are below the average score because 1 is far less than 74. I hope you do not get a 1 on any of your test scores in school because that is just ridiculous. So now we are going to type in a number that isn't here. We're going to put 100. Who wouldn't want 100% on a test? So let's go ahead and count the index. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Index 6. So we should get back, there's a match at index 6 and the average test score, and that we are above the average test score. So we're going to type in 100. Perfect. Typed in 100. There's a match at index 6, like I told you. The average test score is 74. And nice, you are at or above the average test score because 100 is far above 74. And again, that is the entirety of the program. I hope you all liked it. Thank you to my teacher for allowing me to use this on my YouTube channel. And let me know whether this was useful to you at all, whether I helped you problem solve. And I know I could have put all of these, I could have kind of simplified this program by putting these inside of functions. But because I haven't talked about functions yet on my channel, I did not want to get any of you confused. Functions are soon to come. I'm going to talk about data types in a future video, and then we should be getting into functions. But again, let me know. I know this is not the cleanest code. I just wanted to show you what's possible with for loops, with while loops, and user input. Whatever you can show you what's possible by manipulating user input. So again, thank you very much for watching the video. If you've been here this far, this long, thank you so much. And let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you like it, hit a like. If you want to stay tuned for more content, more amazing content, please subscribe. And thank you very much. And this video was much longer than I intended it to be, but I hope you all gained something from it. You all have a good one. Stay safe. Be the best version of yourselves. Take care.